Even with perfect use of birth control pills, ovulation is suppressed almost completely. But there is a very small chance that ovulation occurs. If ovulation happens, fertilization is possible, and the pill may prevent implantation of the fertilized ovum. Okay, what is that? What is a fertilized ovum? Okay, the fertilized ovum is a baby, right? This is a baby, right? That has its full DNA, 50% from the mother, baby boy, 50% from the father. You know, it could be a baby girl, and it's a unique, it's a irreplaceable, it's a fertilized ovum, right? We'll see that in the mechanism of action in the FDA's own publication. The implantation will fail. The fertilized ovum will fail to implant. Well, what does that mean? That means the baby will die. Okay, the baby will die. For an individual woman taking the pill for 10 years, let's say, for example, she's between the ages of 17 and 27, just for an example. The probability of a fertilized ovum failing to implant is low, perhaps 1 in 10 years, or, legally speaking, practically negligible. However, when a physician prescribes birth control to hundreds of women over a multi-decade career, the rare event becomes virtually certain to occur at least once. Okay, so at least once. There is at least one baby that would have otherwise been, born. There would have been a successful implantation had it not been for this, this pill. Okay, scaling even a tiny uh, per woman probability across thousands of patients means that it is highly likely that at least one viable fertilized ovum has failed to implant. One baby has died due to the action of the pill. Okay, one. There's a high likelihood that at least one baby died. One beautiful, healthy, viable, innocent baby died due to the action of the pill. In other words, while the risk per patient is minuscule, the cumulative effect across a large population makes it almost inevitable that it has happened. Okay, um, this is a really serious thing. It's a really, really serious thing to take an innocent life, you know and it's not for the greater good, right? What's the point here? To be able to have the fornication and to have meaningless intercourse with multiple partners, right? Is that the greater good? You're going to sacrifice at least once this one baby here, at least one baby, at least one baby. A fertilized ovum is a baby. The prevent implantation, and there's the death. At least one. Dr. Michel Dow is guilty. 100%, 100% guilty. It's so clear that this has happened. Even if, for some weird reason that all of these, failure to implant would have not happened, right? Still, there's the breach of medical ethics. Still, there's the fiduciary duty that is owed to the patient, that she's basically lying about that, you know. So there's something going on here, right? And I'm not just imagining something. I'm not just being, a crazy person here, right? Let's think a little bit about what the value of a human life is, right? There's no greater value. Okay? There is no greater loss, right? Imagine that one baby, right? Imagine one child lost, right? How serious is that? Even one, right? I know there are multiple, but we're just going to quantify this by saying that there's at least one. Okay, so for example, me, right? I lost a baby. I cannot, it's very, very difficult to prove it, right? It's not impossible, but it's difficult to prove it. It would be possible. The failure to implant a viable fertilized ovum has failed to implant, right? That's a serious thing. It's not a joke, man. Like, this is real. This is absolutely real, and this is happening in our world today. And the people on the pillars of our community are killing babies, the pillars of our community. Actually, she's a great doctor and everything. Killing a baby, killing children. Taxpayer funded abortions, right? And then at the Clare Medical Center right now, you got abortions that are being paid for by your taxes. And you got gender affirming care that are paid for by your taxes. And you got this kind of nonsense here, right? The the implantation is being prevented, the baby will die, right? With your tax, with your tax. So the problem here that I'm having is if anybody pays taxes here, right? But you know how people are. Oh, well, there's nothing we can do about it. That's just the way it is. We can't. It's not the way it is. No, it's the way that you have been so complicit in it for so many years. And nobody knows about this for some reason. They are just completely blind to this, and it's just not possible. you know Negligible does not mean an acquittal, right? It's certainly not an acquittal, but this is real. This is really, really happening. I thank you very much for tuning in. I'll see you in the next video.